Alright, welcome back. So in the last video, we got an intro to what DOM is. DOM basically stands for Document Object Model, and that is the thing that you would be using at all times to interact with the HTML using your JavaScript or the CSS, right? So how do you do that exactly? We saw everything like what is DOM, and we saw examples from the, of how this figure actually resides inside a JavaScript object, right? By using the console. And now what we're going to see is interacting, right? So if you try to change, basically contain the interaction part in just two steps, you could um, compile that as first you select the element and next you change or interact. This is actually quite, this might be quite evident already, but following this kind of thing in your mind will always help you do interactions without any problem. So what do I mean by that? So for that, I'll make a new HTML file. I have something already open here. So I have a new folder named DOM intro, in which I have a file named intro.html, right? And for the title, I'm going to take DOM intro, and the h1 is going to be DOM intro again. And then I'll have some things here. First of all, I don't need a JavaScript file right now because all the things that we're going to do right now will be through the console, right? Yeah, so now I'll take a tag and I'll give it an href of Google, and I'll select another tag and I'll give it an href of Wikipedia. Then I'll make a UL. Inside that I'll have an li saying fruits, and another was saying cars, let's say, right? Then I'll have an OL, inside which there's an li saying, let's say, devices. Then I have another li saying games, right? So this is, I've actually taken some diverse elements because for selecting we'll need some diverse elements, and I'll add some classes and IDs here. So I'll give it an ID of, let's say, Google link, right? And I'll give this li a class of ending li, and similarly I'll give a class ending li to this, and I can give an ID of, let's say, special to this one, right? So now I have a HTML document set up with some diverse elements. The a tag is present, ul is present, li is present, ol is present, and of course the h1 is present, and the body head all are present, right? And we have some IDs, we have some classes, right? Yeah, so now we can start doing this. I'll open this up. So this is what I have. Not very good looking, of course, but that's not what we're aiming for here. I'll add a br tag here, and now I have something like this, right? So what do I mean by selecting and then changing and interacting, right? So first, obviously, we'll have to select what you want to change, right? Let's say you want to change the text inside of this first li, right? First li of the ol tag, this devices thing, you need to change the text. So what you'll have to do is you will first have to select this particular li, then you will have to change it, right? Changing part we're going to see in the next video, selecting we're going to see now. And let's say you want to change all the a tags on the page, so you'll have to select the a tags, right? Yeah, so that's obvious, but how do you do that? So if I go to my console, so first of all, what we're going to use to select things are methods, right? Methods, yeah. So all the functions that are inside objects are known as methods, first of all. And as we know that document is an object, as we saw in the last video, so we can use the dot operator to refer to things inside of it, right? And all the methods that we are going to use are simply methods inside the document object, right? So we'll start one by one. So first thing that we're going to see is the method which is known as get element by id, right? So let's just see its use and you'll instantly understand what I'm talking about. So if I do get element by id, right, this one, and in here, let's say I give my id of this. If you remember, this was of id special, right? Let's say I give id as special and I press enter. So you see, this is what I get back. So basically, out of this whole HTML document, we have selected this single li which has an id of special by using document.getElementById by id and giving special as the argument, right? And we got this back. So this is basically all that selecting means. Plus you will have to store this in some variable, right? So let's say I store it in the variable known as check, and I do the same thing. Bring this and I'll do var check document.getElementById special. So now if I see what check is, it is basically this li, and again, like in the previous video, the document object was being returned as an HTML instead of the object form. The same thing is being done here. So if we do console.dir here too, you can see this check is actually an object which has all the properties inside of it, right? And this is how we are going to change this. So let me see if I can drag up some example from here. Yeah, so let's say I wanted to change the HTML inside of it. This is just an example, of course, we'll see this later too. But this inner HTML thing, you could change the inner HTML thing of this particular li that we have selected, this property inner HTML, right? And what shows up on the page will change. So this was just a very broad example. Of course, we'll see this again later. But what I wanted to show you was that now we get an object back, which is this li with an id of special, and which is stored in check now. So if I want to change something in this, I'll do check dot, and then I'll give my property name. Let's say there was something known as property name. Of course, there's not. And I'll give it as property value. I'll get an error for this. I mean, I don't get an error, but this is obviously not something that I wanted. So check.property name is equal to property value. There will be something here, right? So you can see this is just a normal object, and everything, all the data related to the things on this page are inside this object, and we have selected it using get element by id, right? So now we can move on to our next method for selecting. We are basically going to see 5, right? Get elements by class name. So let's say you want to access for some reason all the elements which have a class of ending li here, right? So how can you do that? You can simply do var check is equal to document dot get elements by class name, and you'll give the class name here. Now if I see what check is, I can see it's a collection of two things. First is an ending li. I mean, both are ending li's, but one is this one up here, which is highlighted right now, and the next is this one, right, which is highlighted now. So I get both the LIs which had a class of ending LI. In this code you can see only these two have an ending LI class, and now I can do whatever I want with them. I could change their background color, I could do anything with them. But in this check variable I basically have these two right now, and I could change my properties using something like, again, check dot, right? Yeah, alright, so that was the method as get elements by class name. So now the third thing that we're going to see is, I'll first put the comment, which is get elements by tag name, right? So what if you want to select all the LIs? Obviously there's no sense in giving same class to all of them just to select them. So we have a method for that, which is known as get elements by tag name. So what you can do is, let's say you want to select all the A tags here, right? So you could do document dot get elements by tag name, and then you give the tag name in here. And now if I see what check is, it's a collection of two things, which is this and this. Both of them are different, and they are both inside of this structure right here. So talking about the structure, first of all, right? So by the first look, this does look like an array, but let me tell you, this is not an array. This is something else, which we are not going to study in the course too, because this is not something that you will use while development itself. I mean, in most of the cases. So this is not something that you need to know. This is a node list, but this you could see as something which has a lot of properties of arrays, but does not have a lot of properties of arrays. So now inside this check, say it's a list, right? So I could do something like check 0, and I get only this A tag, right? And if I see this in object form, I get this A tag back with all my properties, and this is the element being selected. And check 1 would give me this A tag back. So selecting basically gives you this node list in which you can use some properties of the arrays, which is check 1. You know, indexing is usable. You could also do dot length, that is also usable. But let's say you wanted to try out something like the for each. You see there is no for each inside the check, right? So this looks like an array, but this is not an array, and most of the times this won't matter to you. But just so you know at the back of your mind that what is returned by this is not an array, right? Check is now an object. All right. So yeah, so these are the three basic methods that we've seen, and now the method that we are going to see is my personal favorite, which is the query selector, right? So basically, from the three methods that we've seen till now, you could select anything on the whole page. So why are there two more methods here? So first, let's see the query selector. So the reason query selector is that it can do the jobs of all the methods we have seen till now. So basically, query selector can help you select elements by ID, it can help you select elements by class name, it can help you select elements by tag name, and without any problem, right? So I'll just select, let's say this A tag with an ID of Google link, right? So I can do something like, I'll save it in first this time, or let's keep it uniform. I'll save it in check query selector, right? And inside here, so now I could do something like Google link, but if I press enter, I see check is null, because now we know that Google link, that the query selector can do the jobs of all three. So we need to have some way in which we can distinguish between a class and ID and a normal tag name inside this, right? So what I mean is, first let me just try to select the UL, and if I give UL here, and now if I see check, I am getting my UL. And that is because if you just give a simple name inside of these quotes, it is understood that this is a tag name, right? And that is why this works on a tag name. But if you wanted this to work on an ID, you would have to put a hash here. So now the thing is that inside the query selector, inside these quotes, you can use all the CSS selectors, even the more complex ones that we saw inside this, right? The adjacent selector, all of them. So now if I do this, and if I see check, I see I've got my A tag with an ID of Google link, right? And similarly, I could get something with this class, say ending li, and I'm going to show you something with this class thing too, right? So I'll select this dot class name ending li, right? Yeah. So now if I see check, you would expect to see a collection of two things, right? Oh, this is get elements by class name. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, in the query selector, I'll change this to and now if I see check, you would expect to see a list of two things, which is this li and this li right here. However, I see that I'm only getting one li inside of this, and if I do right, I'm getting only the first li here. And similarly, if I do something like query selector li, basically this should select all li's, right? But does it do that? No, it selects only the first li. So that is one thing about the query selector, that it selects only the first occurrence of that thing on the page. So hashtag Google link was this was the only thing on the page having an ID of Google link. So that is why this worked correctly. But here, when two things have the class name of ending li, this will just select the first one, or when there are multiple li's, this will select the first one. Similarly, if there are multiple A tags, this just selects the first one. So yeah, that is what the query selector does. It selects only the first element, right? So now you might be thinking that all the use of query selector is now gone. If it's not selecting all the elements if I wanted to, so it's gone. And that's precisely why we have another method known as query selector all, right? And what this does is literally the same thing as the query selector, but if there are multiple things on the page satisfying that one selection property, then it will return all of them, right? So let's say I want something like I'll do all, and inside this if I give li, and if I see check, I see this is a node list of 4 things, this li, this li, this li, this li, and that's why it is working completely fine. And so this is, again, everything in here will be same as the query selector. You can use all the CSS selectors that you know, and query selector all can be used to select elements by class name, by tag name, by ID, or anything. Just everything is like the query selector, except it returns a node list if there are multiple elements of the page satisfying that condition, right? So this was the basic selecting that you needed to do, and now you can select any element on the whole page, right? Because as you could select elements in CSS by using some advanced selectors or using IDs or classes or simple tag names, if that's very easy, then similarly you can select anything on the whole page using these elements. And so now in the next video we are going to see how you can utilize this check variable right here that we've got to actually manipulate the things that are showing up on the page, right? Alright, so that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.